He had just walked into his office when he saw something on the whiteboard that made his heart stop. It was a solution, a perfect, elegant, impossible solution to the very problem that had kept the company bleeding for months. And standing in front of it was Maria, his maid, holding a whiteboard marker, frozen in panic. What she said next would shake the very foundation of his billion-dollar empire. Chapter 1. The Invisible Genius. Maria had worked for CEO Daniel Whitaker for 4 years. She was quiet, polite, and rarely said more than was necessary. Every morning, she arrived at his penthouse at 5:30 a.m., cleaned meticulously, and left before the board meetings even began. To Daniel, she was just the maid. He never asked about her past, never questioned how someone so composed and observant ended up dusting his bookshelf full of leadership awards. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that Maria had once been a brilliant computer scientist back in her home country. But a political crisis had forced her to flee with her younger brother, leaving behind everything: her degrees, her job, even her identity. Now, survival meant silence, but Maria never stopped thinking. She never stopped solving problems, just silently in her mind, as she folded clothes and mopped floors. Chapter 2. The $200 million nightmare Whitaker Technologies was at a breaking point. Once the golden unicorn of Silicon Valley, the company had recently rolled out a major AI infrastructure that promised to change the game in logistics and supply chain automation. But it had a fatal flaw. A $200 million contract had gone south because the algorithm kept misallocating resources. Despite hiring the top consultants and engineers from MIT and Stanford, no one could figure it out. Investors were panicking. The board was on edge. And Daniel hadn't slept in weeks. They called it the Ghost Loop, a mysterious system, bug that rerouted goods across the wrong distribution centers every 48 hours, costing millions per cycle. Chapter 3. The Accidental Discovery. It was 5 a.m. on a Tuesday when Daniel returned home unexpectedly, still in a daze from another failed strategy session. He needed a notebook he had left in his home office. As he entered, he noticed the whiteboard. On it were notes, diagrams, refinements to the existing code, logic trees rerouted, a correction to the decision model that was so obvious, and yet no one had seen it. And there was Maria, startled, holding the marker like a child caught scribbling on the walls. Daniel's mouth fell open. What is this?" "I'm sorry," she said, trembling. "I shouldn't have touched anything. Did you do this?" he asked, eyes locked onto hers. I saw something in your documents. I thought maybe I could help." Chapter 4. The decision. Daniel didn't know what to think. On one hand, it was insane. Could his maid really be the person who just solved their most pressing crisis? On the other hand, the logic on the board made perfect sense. He called his CTO at 5:30 a.m. "I need you to come over. Now, don't ask, just come." Within hours, the engineering team had reviewed Maria's notes. The room went silent. Then, disbelief turned to astonishment. This fixes the loop," the CTO whispered. "She's right." But Maria wasn't celebrating. She was already gathering her things to leave. "I know I shouldn't have." "No," Daniel said, his voice steady. "You're not going anywhere." Chapter 5. The revelation. The team was divided. Some refused to believe it. Others were inspired. Maria was brought into a private meeting with Daniel and the board, where she hesitantly explained her background, her lost credentials, her brother's education she was silently funding, and how she never stopped studying software architecture in secret during her off hours. She was, in every way, more qualified than half the engineering department. The boardroom was silent when she finished. One board member whispered, "We've been looking in the wrong places for genius." Chapter 6. The risk hiring Maria officially, openly, was a legal and political minefield. She had no U.S. credentials, no formal work history in the country. It would raise eyebrows. Investors might walk away. Daniel didn't care. He announced it publicly. The hired brilliance in disguise. Maria's solution saved us $200 million and kept the company alive. From now on, we're not just hiring resumes. We're hiring minds. Some investors pulled back, but others, inspired by the story, poured in more. Media outlets caught wind of it, and Maria's story became viral. She went from sweeping floors to being a keynote speaker at TEDx within 3 months. Chapter 7. The rise. Maria became the lead systems architect at Whitaker Technologies. Her strategies led to a 35% boost in operational efficiency. But more importantly, she founded a division focused on finding overlooked talent people who were brilliant but buried under circumstances. Refugees, veterans, single mothers, ex-convicts. With coding skills, Daniel, once a man who judged people by their roles, had become a different kind of leader, one who now started every meeting with the same sentence: who are we ignoring today? Chapter 8. The lesson. 1 year later, standing on the stage at the Global Innovation Summit, Maria was asked, "What do you say to people who feel invisible?" She paused, looked straight into the camera and said, "Your light doesn't need permission to shine. Just because they don't see your worth doesn't mean you aren't priceless. Keep learning, keep dreaming. One day, the world will have no choice but to notice." Daniel looks back at that morning, often the marker in Maria's hand, the terrified look on her face, and the whiteboard that changed everything. Sometimes, he smiles to himself and thinks, the best decision I ever made was choosing not to erase that board. Moral message. Genius isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's sweeping your floors at dawn. Never underestimate someone based on their position. Greatness can be hidden in the most unexpected places.